Hello, citizens of Gotham. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching the Political Vigilante, Making Gotham Great Again. Oh, they've tried to demonetize us. We have been demonetized. We're in our third month of demonetization. Why haven't I completely had to shut down the show? Because you folks keep supporting us. So if you haven't, go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. I have a Venmo account. I have a PayPal account. I have an online store. All great ways to support what we're doing so we can keep bringing you stories like this. Bill Gates. Oh, our boy Billy Gates. So some people said that Bill Gates, his vaccine is gonna turn us into zombies, or there's gonna be a computer chip and they're gonna track our movements. By the way, they don't need to they already can track our movements with a smartphone. Bill Gates says no to sharing vaccine formulas with global poor to end pandemic. This is the way. So for people that are like, don't want to take the vaccine, or if you don't want to, that's fine. But you're all like, oh, don't take it. It's a conspiracy. When this guy deliberately withholds the patents so that poor countries can just make this vaccine, that's how he's using it. The ruling elites got all the vaccines first, by the way. So I've talked about, I'm getting the vaccine. People, oh, Graham, you're pushing the vaccine. Well, why are they making it not available for poor countries? Why is like India, who's like, it's gone through the roof, they can't get the vaccine. Brazil, it's gone through the roof because Bolsonaro is a jackass. Modi's a jackass. And the Sputnik V, the Russian vaccine, was offered to Brazil, and Brazil turned it down because they were basically threatened by the US. And it's awful what's happening in Brazil and India. Because Bill Gates, he's a eugenicist, right? We've heard about this, but this is how he's denying the vaccine. So for all of you like, oh, the vaccines, blah, 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 just know that there's countries that are begging for it that can't get it. And billionaires like Bill Gates are making sure they don't get it. The United States empire is pressuring Brazil to not accept the Russian vaccine. God, I hate the ruling elites. Health advocates blast Microsoft billionaire for saying patent protections on life-saving vaccines must remain. He doesn't want... Jonas Salk, if I'm not mistaken, came up with the polio vaccine and then made it free for everybody. And there's still some poor countries that have had, like, I think Angola had a polio outbreak several years ago because they're a poor country who couldn't afford it. So I just want you to know that refusing a vaccine is a form of Western privilege. I just want you to understand that. Well, there's only so many vaccine factories in the world, and people are very serious about the safety of vaccines. So moving something that has never been done, moving a vaccine, say, from a Johnson & Johnson factory to a factory in India, it's novel. It's only because of our grants and expertise that can happen at all. That's a quote from Bill Gates. So he doesn't care. He doesn't care that India is like having a crazy crisis. They're running out of wood to cremate the bodies in India. It's horrific. And this is to the threat. So this is this Trotsky of the 21st century. I don't know this person, but the great irony here is this. The reason Bill Gates became a billionaire is because he famously persuaded IBM to not retain an exclusive license for MS Microsoft DOS. In short, the exact opposite of what he's doing here. So he made his billions going, oh, we don't need a patent, and stole it so he could steal it because he's a weasel. And I don't know why techie liberals love this guy. He's horrible. I'm going to show his ties to Epstein in a couple minutes here. Just sit tight for that, kids. Hit the pause button, get some popcorn. Bill Gates has really horrific ties to Jeffrey Epstein, also, who wanted to create a master race. We're going to get to that in a second. So this is how the weasel, but there's no way to become a billionaire unless you do something awful, like steal a patent, and then now withhold the patent so that third world countries can't get a life-saving vaccine. And Bill Gates, and I've done videos on this, spends money, tens of millions of dollars, buying favorable coverage from the corporate media. That's why they're always doing all these stories about, oh, isn't he a cute little fun nerdy billionaire? We love nerds and he's so great. They're not talking about this. Gates speaks as if all lives are being lost in India are inevitable, but eventually the West will help, when in reality, the US and UK are holding their feet on the neck of developing states by refusing to break TRIPS protections. It's disgusting. Look at that maggot-ridden piece of shit. Why are we letting billionaires live? It's beyond me. Why'd you go to the Capitol? Go surround a billionaire's house. The only closest you're going to get to really covering this is The Rising, which is like the furthest left progressive you're going to get out of the corporate media.
Let's go to a couple questions that we've actually received since we...
This is an interview with Bill Gates talking about vaccines, and I want you to listen closely. Then I'm going to show you the Rising thing.
Started the webcast. The first is on population growth, and the question is, one of our most pressing issues is population growth. How do you expect this to be addressed?
Well, the population growth issue at the global level is not that daunting. That is, the population percentage-wise is growing slower today than in the past, and so it will actually peak out. The problem is that the population is growing the fastest where people are less able to deal with it. So it's in the very poorest places that you're going to have a tripling in population by 2050. And so their ability to feed, educate, provide jobs, stability, protect the environment in those locations mean they're faced with an almost impossible problem. Northern Nigeria, Yemen, Chad. And so what we need to do is take this aid generosity and this innovation and go into those places, offer the women better tools where they want to space birthing or have a smaller family size, and improve health, because it's amazingly, as children survive, parents feel like they'll have enough kids to support them in their old age, and so they choose to have less children. Niger right now, it's still 7 children per family, whereas in the richer countries, you're often at a stable point of which is 2.1 or even less. And so it's really an acute problem in a certain number of places, and we've got to make sure that we help out with the tools now so that they don't have an impossible situation later.
If he's worried about overpopulation, denying people a vaccine would help that, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Here's the rest.
Well, boys and girls, let me cut right to the chase here. Liberals' favorite billionaire hero, Bill Gates, is lying to you in a way that is profoundly harmful for lives in the global south and for your health right here in the U.S. Let me explain. So as you know, while the U.S. is doing pretty well on vaccine administration, with half of U.S. adults having received at least 1 dose, poor countries are in truly desperate shape. Somewhere around 3/4 of vaccine doses have been administered in just 10 high-income countries. Over 100 countries have yet to administer their very first dose. India, of course, has become the new ground zero for exploding COVID cases. The U.S. just recently lifted an embargo on the raw materials needed to help make COVID vaccines in that country and to improve their vaccination rates. But in general, it's a mess. And it's a mess for basically one simple reason: greed. Pharma wants to keep their profits high, and they have aggressively lobbied their home countries in the US and in the EU to make sure that they can achieve that goal, protecting their patent monopolies so that generic versions of their life-saving vaccines cannot be manufactured, which would both increase supply and lower the cost. They have had an extraordinarily powerful ally in that fight to protect their bottom line: human lives be damned, our own supposed savior of global public health, Bill Gates. Now, Gates has been pushing a solution to poor nation vaccine distribution that conveniently protects pharma profits. That is the COVAX program through the World Health Organization, where rich countries donate to secure doses for middle income and low income nations. Sounds good maybe in theory, but in practice, it's been a joke. They set a goal of 2 billion doses, which would still, by the way, be insufficient to meet the need. But they have instead provided a pathetic 38 million doses. Has this dramatic underperformance led Bill Gates to rethink his approach? Because let's not kid ourselves, by dint of his money and his connection, he has essentially appointed himself the unofficial world czar of public health. The answer of whether he's rethought it is, of course, not a chance. In an interview on Sky News, Bill Gates was asked whether it would be helpful to lift vaccine patent protections in order to increase access. Here is his answer.
There's been some speculation that the changing intellectual property rules and allowing these vaccines, as you say, the recipe for these vaccines to be shared would be helpful. And do you think that would be helpful?
No.
Why not?
Well, there's only so many vaccine factories in the world, and people are very serious about the safety of vaccines. And so moving something that had never been done, moving a vaccine from, say, a J&J factory into a factory in India, that it's novel. It's only because of our grants and our expertise that can happen at all. The thing that's holding things back in this case is not intellectual property. There's not like some idle vaccine factory with regulatory approval that makes magically safe vaccines. You've got to do the trials on these things, and every manufacturing process has to be looked at in a very careful way. There's all sorts of issues around intellectual property having to do with medicines, but not in terms of how quickly we've been able to ramp up the volume here. I remember how shocked people were when we said we were going to do second sources in these developing country factories. That was a novel thing. And we got all the rights from the vaccine companies. They didn't hold it back. They were participating. I do a regular phone call with the pharmaceutical CEOs to make sure that work is going at full speed.
So let's just unpack what he says there. His argument is that lifting patent protections will not help the supply problem whatsoever. So it's better to just stay the course and produce at the current level and hope that eventually rich countries donate enough money and surplus vaccines that poor countries get taken care of. In his words, it's not like there's some idle vaccine factory with regulatory approval that makes magically safe vaccines. Oh, really? I present to you this article from the AP. In an industrial neighborhood on the outskirts of Bangladesh lies a factory with gleaming new equipment imported from Germany. Its immaculate hallways lined with hermetically sealed rooms. It's operating at just a quarter of its capacity. It is one of 3 factories that the AP found on 3 continents whose owners say they could start producing hundreds of millions of COVID-19 vaccines on short notice if only they had the blueprints and the technical know-how. I present also to you John Fulton, president of BioLease in Canada, who says he could be making millions of doses today if the know-how had been shared. We've been passed over. We've got this production capacity and it's not being put to use. If we had started this last year, we could have shipped millions of doses by now. This is supposed to be like a wartime effort, everyone in it together, but that does not seem to be the case. And finally, I present to you the words of Manuel Martin, a policy advisor to Doctors Without Borders. The Gates organization dampened early enthusiasm by saying that IP is not an access barrier in vaccines. That's just demonstratively false. Demonstratively false. Bill Gates is lying to you when he says that lifting patent protections will not help with access. Now, look, it may not magically fix everything. Nothing is a cure-all, but it is a root cause of the problem. And it would help to ease the supply issue so that poor countries can start vaccinating and we can all avoid the horror of watching the virus mutate to the point where it jumps the current vaccines. Bill Gates, with his billions, set the course for how global vaccine distribution would unfold. And now millions of people around the world are paying the price. Now, for those who've been tracking Gates' actions in the public health space for decades, these new comments will come as absolutely no surprise, as journalist Alexander Zaitchik writes over at TNR. Since Gates got involved in the AIDS epidemic in Africa in the late 90s, he has cultivated close relationships with big pharma execs, lauded their wonderful and noble efforts, and aggressively pushed industry-friendly policies with regards to patents. This significantly set back access to AIDS antiretroviral therapies, and it has been a disaster for COVID vaccine access. Gates's pro-industry stance also should come as no surprise, given that the man is a billionaire uber capitalist who made his own ill-gotten fortune by novel exploitations of patent law and unchecked monopoly power. Now, he may sincerely want to cure disease and make the world a better place. He also has a sincere ideological commitment to protecting monopolies and profit margins for some of the world's worst actors, and that he doesn't seem to care what the consequences are. He and pharma argue that patents help foster innovation, which creates the life-saving drugs that we all benefit from. This, too, is largely a lie. Every new drug developed over the past decade was funded by US taxpayers. The revolutionary mRNA technology that pharma is so worried about monopolizing now was developed by university researchers and scientists at the NIH and the Department of Defense. Now, I know we've got a complicated love-hate relationship with billionaires in this country, but maybe, just maybe, it is not such a great idea to outsource global public health policy to a rapacious monopolist. Maybe, just maybe, it's not such a great idea to outsource labor market conditions and unionization rates to another rapacious monopolist at Amazon. Maybe we shouldn't be outsourcing free speech and censorship to another set of monopolists in Silicon Valley. Perhaps these men are good people. Maybe they're not good people. Maybe they're well-intentioned. Maybe they're not. But no one voted for them to be king of the world. They are totally unaccountable to a single soul. And every one of them is committed to existing power because they are existing power. Sagar, back when we covered that poll about...
Well, yeah, I mean, she says it quite well, but I will say this, like, I mean, she's being a journalist of saying, well, maybe they're good men. They're not. Krystal, I appreciate the segment. I don't know you personally, but they're not. They're soulless sociopaths. They're awful people who spend money to put crap out like this. Oh, look at the fun-loving. He's going to avoid a climate disaster. How? By letting the third world die? So let's before these are stories that are just rarely told. So first, let's just go back a touch. Jeffrey Epstein's hoped to seed human race with his DNA. Yeah, that was a true thing. He flew a bunch of scientists to his crazy, filthy compound in New Mexico. You know, the one that Clintons visited a bunch of times. You know, when Bill was on his plane 26 times and Hillary was on twice and they had Ghislaine Maxwell at their daughter's wedding. Anyway, but let's look at this. So we know this Epstein was an evil psychopath, one of the worst pedophiles ever, sex trafficking pedophile, raped children and sold them, maybe even had some of them killed. We don't know. But he wanted to seed a human race with his DNA. No, we don't need anybody more in there. But why then? And Bill Gates always like, gee, I barely knew Epstein. Oh yeah. There's Bill Gates. There's Jeffrey Epstein. There is the CEO of Barclays and also was head of JP Morgan. Larry Summers, former Secretary of Treasury, and Boris Nikolic, Gates' advisor and was the executor of Epstein's will when he hung himself with a paper t-shirt in prison 2 years ago. And there's our boy Billy Gates. Oh, what's this? Flight logs? There's flight logs. Look at that. Bill Gates. Bill Gates. March 1st of 2013. So he said, oh, I didn't know. So this is 2013. So this is now 4 years after Epstein was found guilty in Florida, 2009, found guilty of sex with a minor. Now, he got a slap on the wrist and a sweetheart deal by William Acosta. William Acosta, who was told, go easy on Epstein, he's an intelligence asset. William Acosta was then appointed in Trump's cabinet. Many women were trafficked out of Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Just in case there's any QAnoners that fell across this channel and think Trump is some... No. Trump is part of the evil bullshit. He's part of the evil bullshit. But I just want you to know, this is who Bill Gates is. Pals with Epstein. And he spends tens of millions of dollars to get favorable coverage, to have all good documentaries. And he's always presented in this fun-loving light. And really, Krystal Ball at the Rising is the only mainstream, and even their show is kind of on. It's done by The Hill, which is absolutely corporate media. But no one is going to cover Bill Gates on CNN or MSNBC the way Krystal Ball just did, or they're definitely. And she doesn't even bring up Epstein. You got to come to this show for me to show the Epstein ties. Let's go through this gang again. Boris Nikolic, Gates' advisor, was also was like basically the CFO of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay. And an executor of Epstein's will? That seems weird to me. Secretary Treasurer, big banking guy. Jess Daly, Larry Summers, Epstein, Bill Gates, and Boris Nikolic. This is the guy hanging out with a monster in 2011. So 2 years after what happened in Florida. 2 years after that, still then, more charges are brought to Epstein. He gets on his plane. And we're supposed to believe that this guy's some cuddly going to save the planet. Who, as we just saw through articles and through Krystal Ball's reporting, does not want to take away the patents. So there's a facility in India, state of the art, as Krystal showed up, state of the art, clean, hygienic. So he's already playing on this sort of racist colonial narrative of, oh, they got a bunch of dirty factories over there. They can't make this right. No, there's a factory ready to go. If you just took away the patents, India could be doing this right now rather than building crematoriums like out in the street and just burning dead bodies from all the COVID deaths, which isn't good for our safety. So he's okay with a bunch of people dying around the planet. See how we do this? By the way, he could be right now going to India he could have done this 6 months ago, a year ago, said, all right, all these third world countries, let's get these factories built right now. So whenever a vaccine is ready, we can produce it. He could have done that. He's like, boy, I don't know. They're not ready. It's just not the regulatory blah, blah. You could have done that. He could end homelessness in this country. He could bring people out of poverty in India. He's a weasel. He's not a good person. None of these billionaires are good people. They're not good people. Don't buy any of this fun-loving billionaire crap. They became billionaires through evil means. They're not good people. So that's our show, everybody. That's the truth. That's why you come here. Follow the money, connect the dots. So again, he doesn't want to give up his patent because it'll cut into his money. He makes more money giving it away. He doesn't make money. Getting people out of poverty doesn't make him money. Building hospitals and vaccine factories for free doesn't make him money. Withholding patents gets him money. Getting patents released so then he can steal their technology to create Microsoft, that made him a lot of money. He's a weasel. He's not your buddy. He's not your pal. I don't care if he made some technology that you like and enjoy. He's still an awful person. He could be making the world a better place and he won't. Jeff Bezos could be making the world a better place and he won't. Just because Elon Musk said, oh, we're going to, we're going to buy Bitcoin and you can use, okay, great. And he builds an electric car and solar panels, but he said, we'll coup who we want to coup. So still, even then, Elon Musk is awful. Never forget that the ruling class is out to get you and they're not your friends and they don't care about you. They don't care if you die. They don't give a damn about you. They only care if they can squeeze more money out of you and extract power and resources and labor. They don't give a shit about you. So you're in a third world country. Bill Gates and the billionaires could be helping you, but they are actively choosing not to because it's bad for their bottom line. They already have more money than they know what to do with. They could give away 99% of their money and still be uber rich, but they don't want to. Follow the money, connect the dots, find the truth. Bill Gates is a monster. Friends with Epstein is letting people die because there's no money in giving away a vaccine. Support what we do because the corporate media won't cover this. We will. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at grahamelwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.